Welcome to the Astrology Star Sisters. Today it's You're a Sky Full of Stars in relationship to the Fixed Stars Part 3, and my astrology star sister and friend and fellow astrologer, Marcia Bouchard, is here to join me today. Welcome, Marcia. How are you today?
Pretty good, thanks.
Well, I'm
As you
glad
can
you're
see,
back.
I have a little seasonal jewelry on here, jingle
Oh, I
bells
love it.
beneath the
I love
headphones.
it. So here we go. So to get a hold of Marcia, her email is madam m at mindspring.com, and my website is alightpath.com, and we always enjoy hearing from you. And Marcia's named this episode Pivotal Energies, and take it away, Marcia.
Okay. Um, this is exploring a continued exploration of the different ways in which fixed stars can impact a birth chart. And these stars are sometimes called angular stars, but the reason I call them pivotal is because of the ancient term for, in Hellenistic astrology, for the angles of the chart, the kentrons, um, was its primary definition is pivot, as in um, imagine a doorway with one of those doors that does like this, so that central hinge point that allowed people, to enter and exit at the same time. Those These are special doorways into the chart. And so the I like to think of them as the portals through which our incarnation is established. You can change the slide, Liz. So the focus for this episode is going to be the stars associated with the horizon of the chart. The other stars co-culminating that would be associated with the meridian of the chart, I'll deal with in another episode. But today we'll focus on the horizon, your own personal, you know, place on the earth. The first thing I wanted to make sure that I had was clear in everyone's mind was the definition of the angles of the chart. We toss around the term, and here is what we really mean by it. If you look at the chart that's over on the right-hand side of the slide, this is the chart for the new moon that we had on the 30th of November of this year. And the yellow line that you see drawn across the horizontal axis of the chart is the ascendant, rising, and descendant setting. These are the degrees of the ecliptic that intersect the horizon. And unless you live right at the equator, they are not due east or west. Same thing for the Midheaven and IC axis, which is the blue line that's more vertically oriented. These are the ecliptic degrees that intersect a line drawn from due north to south. They are not the zenith or the nadir of any chart. The zenith point is right up above your head as you're standing here, and the nadir is down below 180 degrees all the way to the other side of the planet. But we tend to toss those terms around and make them sort of sound like they're the same thing, and they're not. When you get out and start doing naked eye astronomy and considering the positions of the fixed stars, you start to find this out very quickly. You can change the slide now, Liz. So here is that same chart looking towards the eastern horizon. So as you can see, okay, what I've got here on this chart, this is created using a program known as Starlight. The blue line that you see going from the upper right to the lower left is the celestial equator that represents the tilt, okay, of the Earth off of due, straight up and down, Okay, the axis is tilted. The pink line that you see that is close to, but only, doesn't yet, sort of like totally line up with it, is the ecliptic, which is the sun's apparent path around the earth. The reason I say apparent path is because if anyone remembers their astronomy 101 that they might have learned in first studying astrology, um, the it's actually the earth going around the sun, the orbital path of the earth around the sun, which we see from our standpoint as the sun going around the earth. The two yellow circles, I want you to look at the one to the left. You'll see it says the constellation of Leo, and you'll see the little red AS with the little mark through it. That is the degree of the ecliptic that crosses the horizon in the east. Where to the right of it, where you see the blue line coming down, and that hits due east, 90 degrees away from due north. So you can switch lines. So that's what we mean when we say something, when we talk about the ascendant. Okay. It's not totally due east. It may be, you know, to one side or the other, depending on your location of birth. Okay, Liz, what I mean by the meridian, okay, which we toss around all of those terms, what you do is turn 180 degrees to due south. That's the little yellow circle at the very bottom of the slide. And you run straight up that little orange line, and where that north south axis, the south axis in this case, crosses the ecliptic, that is the meridian, your MC, medium Coli, the upper heaven. So stars and planets on the you know near the MC are that pink line is it represents the height that the sun can rise in the sky today. In November 30th, up here in the northern hemisphere, the sun doesn't get very far above the horizon at all. It certainly does not go straight overhead. It sort of goes up and then across and then kind of down. So you'll see that the MC in the wintertime in the northern hemisphere is, yeah, it's kind of the sun doesn't warm you the way it used to in August. Okay, Liz. So stars on the horizon, they're also known as co-rising and co-setting. So any star on the eastern horizon as a specific degree of the ecliptic rises is called co-rising. Any star on the western horizon as a specific ecliptic degree sets is known as co-setting. Just making sure those definitions are clear. And these are dependent, unlike heliacal rising and setting stars, which can be dependent on the time of year and can last for many weeks. These only last for about 4 minutes, about the time it takes for 1 degree of ecliptic longitude to rise. So this is where the one place in fixed star work where you do need an exact birth time. And I was surprised to find when I went through the database of charts that comes with the Starlight program that there weren't all that many charts with stars on the horizon. Blink, and it's over and done with, 4 minutes later. How about that? Okay, Liz. So when I talk about an angular star associated with the horizon, I do not mean that it is conjunct the ecliptic degree. If you recall those two little extra circles, and we will see this in some example charts, the, the due east and, the ecliptic degree are not in sync with each other on the eastern horizon. The fixed star that may be rising or setting is conjunct the horizon, but it doesn't really have to be conjunct the celestial equator, the due east or west point. Okay, it only means that it's conjunct the horizon. So here's just, a bit of geeky information, local space coordinates. Um, Liz, as a former sailor and navigator, is quite familiar with this. The east-west coordinate, when you're trying to locate a star in the sky for navigation purposes, is called its azimuth. Distance north, east-west on the horizon. The vertical component from the horizon to the zenith is known as altitude. We talk about longitude, celestial longitude, and we talk about declination of planets quite a bit. But when you're outside, going out and looking up, the terms that become all of a sudden very important are azimuth and altitude when you try to use a star as a navigational point. So when I define east and west, you need your compass, which you would if you were a sailor or hiking the Pacific Coast Trail or doing any kind of mountaineering, orienteering. Just, when you need to be able to identify where you are, you get your compass. So any degree east goes from north northeast to south southeast. In other words, 1 degree away from true north to 179 degrees. That's almost due south. West is obviously the opposite. It goes from south southwest to north northwest, from 181 degrees to 359 degrees. And obviously 0 and 180 are due north and due south. So a star anywhere at the eastern horizon, anywhere from 1 degree to 179 degrees, that co-rises with the ascendant. Okay. And a star anywhere in the west from 181 to 359 co-sets with the descendant, even though they're not located anywhere near maybe those angles. Okay. So what does this look like? Okay, here's an actual birth chart. You see the chart in our classic beloved format on the left, all right, with 12 degrees and 41 minutes of the astrological sign, Virgo, rising. If you look to the right, and when this person was born, that degree, the big yellow circle that was rising in the sign of Virgo, was co-rising with another star in the very tail of the constellation of Leo. That's the small circle to the left. So before I get into examples, I wanted to talk about manifestation, because this is something that is, I think, quite special about the angular stars. The manifestation, everybody, for instance, is born with a heliacal rising and setting star pair. Everyone. It might be different, could be extremely different even for the same day, depending on your latitude of birth. But not everybody has angular stars, especially involved with the horizon. In other episodes, we will learn about star energies that are linked energetically to the planets. This, however, in terms of angular stars, this stellar energy infuses the entire chart's basic structure. Bernadette Brady, in her book, Star and Planet Combinations, here is my, well-used copy here.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. She says, these stars are strongly focused into your physical life, your preferred lifestyle, and are with you for your whole life. from the moment that you're born and always. There are certain other stars that, in this, they are like your heliacal rising and setting star pair, but they, instead of being anchored to your sun or to your other planets in the chart, these are anchored into the chart energy itself. Special little, like, what is it they do, Liz? With the printed circuit boards, they call it doping. They put in these molecules of the different, chemicals and
Right.
precious metals and rare earths and everything that make the circuits function. Okay, and these are like that.
Conductivity.
Yeah, conductivity. So here is the chart we were looking at before, the side by side. This is Mozart, famous composer, and the star that he has co-rising with his ascendant is Denebola, tail of the lion. And one of the sort of shorthand ways that this is interpreted is to clash with the establishment. If you think about a lion, okay, or any cat, big or small, you know how they start to lash their tail when they're getting ready to make a big charge or a pounce? If you've ever seen your cat hunting the laser pointer dot on the wall, this is that, it's tremendously propulsive energy, and it's also playful. It's sort of like, they talk about, there's that turn of phrase, tweaking the lion's tail. Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, good stuff. So many people, you can go back to Mozart. I'm not through with him yet.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay, because while everybody knows and has heard of Mozart as a famous composer, very few people realize that, he was one of the first. He was rather unique in that he insisted pretty much on working for and by himself. He started out, most every successful musician wanted to get a patron, someone in royalty with money who could then fund your lifestyle while you composed music for them. Okay, and this was what Mozart's dad did. And this was what dad started Mozart doing once he realized what a brilliant pianist and budding composer he went into employ for himself. He was determined to make it on his own terms. His father was like, oh, his father was so upset. He kept writing him letters saying, you've got to reconcile with this great man. You'll never get anywhere if you don't do this. And Mozart didn't even bother to fight back with his father. He just kept going, rowing, hoeing his own row. So, and lo and behold, he made it. Also, in a time when the church, especially the Catholic churches, still had a tremendous hold on the culture at large, Mozart was a Freemason. He became a Freemason when as he grew to adulthood. And at least one of his operas, The Magic Flute, is felt to be rather peppered with Masonic symbolism. And so, Mozart also, married who he wanted to. Thank you very much. Um, Not necessarily seeking out a wife who could advance him by being of nobler birth and lots and lots and lots of money. And, he basically died a pauper. But he was unique. And he didn't mind being unique. Okay, now you can go to the next chart. This is the chart of Anne Frank. So it's seen from the sky. And this is an illustration of a setting star. Ras Al Ghafi. Okay, if you look over to the left of her chart that I have there, you see DS with the big yellow circle around it. that's her descendant in the sign, you know, just barely into the sign of Aquarius. And way over to the right, the other circle is the head of the constellation Hercules. Now, Hercules was also known, Bernadette Brady found, he was known as the kneeling man and also the phantom. If one looks over at the constellation itself, okay, Hercules is upside down, obviously, but the attitude that he assumes is one of reverence, with an arm upraised and outstretched, as if giving worship. It's what Bernadette gives on a riff of that. This star is tied to giving honor or prayer to the gods, the instinctive attitude of one in awe of the divine, associated with the idea of the natural order of the world. And when connected to one of the pivot points at birth, is, you know, a desire to honor something larger than oneself. And, this woman who lived a very short time, um, her diary, once found and published, revealed a tremendous sense of this exact thing. What is what does it all mean? She's living in an attic with her family, hiding from the Germans, um, and but at the same time, she is seeking to be philosophical and to try and discern the larger pattern of life. One of the reasons I wanted to use her chart as well, if you look at the little pale blue arrow drawn straight down to the west, you see illustrated just how far away a setting star can be from both the due west point and also the descendant, and still be called a setting star because it's in the western part of the sky. Now, the interesting thing that came to me later was that not only can these be used for interpreting birth charts, they can also be used for mundane events. One of the things I'd like to dwell on at the very end is different meanings that might be attributed to the horizon and the meridian. But let's go to a couple of mundane charts, shall we? There was a lot of astrological ink spilled over the recent Mars retrograde station, especially since in the process of going retrograde, he'll started out in Leo, backs up into Cancer, will do, make free oppositions to Pluto. Everybody is panting about this one. But will it manifest exactly the same way everywhere? I decided to look up some hotspots around the globe, and on the day that Mars made its retrograde station, the star Elnath was co-setting at the Descendant. This is the tip of the horn of the great bull, the constellation of Taurus. And you all know what the horns of the bull are. They are the points of attack. So they can be weapons. Elnath can indicate a weapon that can be used for good or ill. Um, for ill, of course, everybody knows, being gored is no fun. But for good, you think of something like the surgeon's scalpel, don't you, Liz?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You know, um, and it's a confrontive energy, you know, not going to take this lying down anymore because, this is cruelty that should not continue, and I'm going to fight back. So, of course, what happened recently, very around, right around this, only 3 days before, I think, was the big confrontation. The president of South Korea had declared martial law. Okay. And the people stood up and said, oh, no, you won't either. And the president eventually had to back down and And then the president got himself impeached. It'll be up to their version of the courts to decide whether or not that impeachment is valid. But I I would not be surprised if the fight continues because, change slides, the Capricorn ingress. We can do this for different locations, looking at the ingresses of the sun into the cardinal signs, of the date that something important like Pluto or Saturn or Uranus or Neptune change signs um, at different locations around the globe. And in South Korea, at a couple days from now, Alhina co-rises. This star is the foot of Pollux in the constellation of the twins. Pollux was the divine twin because Castor and Pollux were both, one was mortal and the other was divine. This is one of these marvelous twin stories that you find in just about every culture, where one is divine, one is mortal, or one is the good, twin and the other's the evil twin. And there's, this whole concept of duality. But Alhina was a star known as also the proudly marching one. And so coming to the horizon, it's like, we are putting our foot down and we will physically stand by what we believe in. These quotes are from, again, that book that I flashed at the screen a little bit ago. So, yes, the pivot star on one of the pivot points, a desire to honor something. Yes, it's one of those wonderful. Let me go back here. Come on, there. Okay. Yes, to become the embodiment of one's beliefs, or to work in a field that requires one to speak out. Someone with this, you could imagine if it was in a birth chart, becoming, an advocate for various causes. Couldn't you, Liz?
Yes, yes. And so the people in South Korea have already been speaking up what they want.
Yes, they have. And, if you look into the upper right part of that little graphic that I have, okay, you have Elnath, which was the star that was at the Mars retrograde station that was on the horizon. So here we are a month later, and now Alhina is rising. Okay. So before we get to this, I want to talk about some thoughts that I had about the horizon and the meridian, because we often talk you know, about as if all of the angles of the chart were created equal, although some more equal than others. A lot of times we just focus on the ascendant and the midheaven, or what's coming up and what's overhead, um, and forget, kind of neglect the others as being of lesser importance. But I kind of think that the meridian, that vertical axis, or the zenith and the nadir, or the stars that are co-culminating and everything, have a sort of mission about them. That if you were to think as the Hellenistic astrologers apparently did, according to Robert Schmidt, he was struck by the nautical metaphors that he found in a lot of the language. And given that Greece, they did a lot of maritime traffic, this was a major mode of travel going around the Mediterranean Sea. And so, yes, there are references that, the for instance, the ascendant and the was called the helm of the chart, what steered you through life. And so the meridian sort of has this flavor to it in my mind of your mission, should you choose to accept it.
That's a great way to
Where
look at it.
Whereas the horizon is the one undertaking the mission. because here you are on Earth, okay? And here is where you're hoping to go, what you're hoping to accomplish. But here you are in this body, incarnate. And, you know, well, okay. As Frodo Baggins says in when he accepts, he decides that he will take the ring to Mordor. He says, I will take the ring, though I do not know the way. And there is nothing that looks less like a hero than Frodo Baggins.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You know. So this caused me to start to reflect on the could there be, and this is not anywhere that I've ever seen, but could there be a difference between how you would interpret a co-rising star as a co-setting star? Let me start with the setting, because the setting star is coming down, is just hitting the horizon just before it disappears. And so this has intimations for my mind of a seed falling out of the tree and landing on the ground. Whereas a rising star, co-rising star, the seed has been in the ground and it's sprouted, and here comes the plant.
I like how you put that. That's good food for thought for sure.
Yeah, could there be a difference? This is something that I think I'm going to have to undertake, because what's it took, for instance, if we go back to those, thinking of the charts, the natal charts, Mozart versus Anne Frank, he had a co-rising star and she had a co-setting star. He was a little genius and a rebel right out of the box. Anne Frank, nobody knew about until after she died, and her diary was recovered, returned to a relative, and then published. So
Yeah,
her
so
legacy, she never knew what the impact that she would have.
yeah, sometimes we don't know the impact we're gonna have.
Yeah, whereas Mozart definitely had an impact, but he was impactful during his short lifetime.
And
He
still is
didn't,
to this day.
and still is to this day. So
Lives
that
on.
lives on. This thought about the co-rising stars being different from co-setting stars has interesting implications in birth charts for relocation. This is something that I've never seen addressed either. Okay. Because if you move to a really different location, or sometimes even a few degrees of latitude up and down, you may well end up with angular horizon related stars that are not in your actual natal birth chart. I decided to go look myself up and found that, oh, this is kind of interesting. I live in the city of Bellingham now, you know, at least 10 degrees north in latitude of where I was born. And if I had been born in Bellingham, I would have been born with a horizon related star, the star Alnilam, which is the central star of Orion's belt. It's the belt buckle. And so this, I thought, Alnilam, well, gee, what is what is there anything really special about Alnilam? And to find success through attention to detail and use this success to portray ideas or even to act as another person. It's it's supremely practical. Yes. we take what we've got and let's see what we can build with it. So the longer I live in this location, with each passing birthday, I've lived up here 5 years now. um, I can feel this sort of, approach to things taking hold. Uh, I know that many people think um, about relocation, especially if you live in a totally different uh, time zone and place from where you were born. That, yeah, the longer you live in a different location, the more its energies begin to imprint on you. So
What a
I
great thought that you have. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you've lived a lot of different places. Who knows what uh, stars you have in any of the places in the Caribbean, or
Mhm.
you were up in Alaska too, weren't you?
Yes.
Okay.
A few different places, yes.
A few different places.
And they're kind of far apart, so it's
And
not like you're
far apart. You'll have to send me the list and I can let you know if any of them, have stars that are on the horizon, either seeds falling to earth or the germinated seeds sprouting up from the earth.
Well, thank you, that would be nice, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, which leads me to little holiday thingy for people, for our audience. You can contact one of your star sisters with your birth info and see if you have in your natal chart a star on your horizon. I'll assume that, nobody has the software except me and, a few of my geeky friends. Um, but I can get you this information and, holiday special. This will be good through the end of the year, up to New Year's. Once you do know, I can put down a few things and some online resources to read because it's wise, I think, to research and meditate on the myths of the constellation. A lot of the big constellations were known worldwide, they were just called different things. It's interesting that some of them are common. Uh, but others are very, very different. But you can Google, a constellation and find out. Okay. What did the Mayans think of this star pattern? Did they recognize it? How about the Chinese? How about the Greeks and Romans? How did they differ from the Egyptians? From the Arabs, from the Persians? Just to Yes, the myths, because sometimes there are myths of the star itself. Um, One of our old friends that I referred to very early on, Algol. The star itself is not just connected to the constellation Perseus, but has a whole mythology um, related to it that's all on its own. The deity symbolized by the star. Okay, the and or its constellation. I was fascinated to read about Hercules because we think of Hercules and immediately do a knee jerk into the Greco-Roman myths of the solar hero. Um, but this kneeling man, I found that fascinating. Someone you think of, for instance, the classic at this time of year, the shepherds, and the wise men kneeling in front of the manifestation of the divine come to earth. And then your life story, as you absorb all this, as the man who fell to earth. That was an old movie, old now, 1976, starred David Bowie as an alien who crash landed in New Mexico according to the plot of the movie, appropriately enough. And he's on a mission. This is what I mean about having come down with a mission. He doesn't get to fulfill his mission because he gets tangled up in the problems of incarnation on Earth and then the discovery of his alien identity, captured and studied, and it's it's a very sad movie. And Bowie actually was absolutely convincing as an alien.
So before we go to that slide, I wanted to ask you a question. So
Yeah,
you said it's a holiday special to contact you to get the Horizon Star,
yeah. See if they have
stars on
one.
the
Yes,
horizon. So is there a charge or a donation with that, um, or you haven't decided?
I'd like to make it free.
Okay,
After, if people are interested and see this after the turn of the year, um, then I will accept $10.
okay.
But
I just wanted to
for the
make that
holiday
clear.
special, it'll be, well, it'll be the solstice thing,
Okay, I just wanted to
the
make it
solstice
clear.
through New Year's Day. So I compiled a list of resources. The two in blue up at the top are names of books. There were two that Bernadette Brady has authored: Brady's Book of Fixed Stars and Star and Planet Combinations, which came out later. There's also a fascinating book called Star Names. Let me see, do I have it here? I don't have it right here, so otherwise I'd hold the book up. But James Allen did this huge compendium that lists quite a lot of the stars in each of the constellations and some of the mythology as well that he was able to compile. The other three are websites. Okay. The Starlight software can be purchased through Zentara.com if people are interested. And there is also the course that I took, the Fixed Stars course that is taught through Astrologos, which is a British company. And then finally, um, probably many people have heard of, and fewer will, of course, have gotten to meet the late and great Diana Rosenberg. Uh, she has a website. She did huge book on fixed stars. Do you have any of her volumes on that, Liz?
Yes, I have volume 1 and 2 because I think one time she printed it as 1 book, and then later
Yeah.
there was 2 books, and I have the 2-book edition of that, and I don't even think I've opened it yet.
Well,
But
shame on you.
I'm learning so much from you, so it's like I'll be opening it soon, maybe over the holidays, that'll be a good one to open.
That'd be a good
'Cause
one to open because it's so dark out right now. Yes, this is, the days are really short and it's hard to get up in the morning. And so, yes, cuddling up by your preferred heat source with a big fat book is,
well, I appreciate all that you've been sharing because 'cause I've been learning a lot. Um, and then we'll come back with another episode to continue this series because Marcia's sharing her knowledge and her ideas, and I so appreciate that because I know for myself, it's very helpful to me. And I want to thank the people that have been joining us live and those that'll come back and watch at a later date. Do you have anything else you wanted to share?
no, I think that's it. Do you have anything else you want to ask? Any burning questions that popped into your head?
Are you going to be teaching a class on the fixed stars yourself, or have you thought about that?
I hadn't thought about that, honestly. But thanks for putting the idea in. Now of course it's going to be, something that keeps me up at night.
Well, we have more episodes to get to, so you can have lots of time to think about it.
Yeah.
Okay, come back for and watch more episodes. We enjoy having you here with us. And I do monthly episodes with Justin. We do the monthly astrology forecast, the full moon forecast, and the Chiron asteroid series. And then the Astrology Sisters does a dwarf planet series, planet stationing, decans using astrology and tarot, the fixed stars, and Uranian astrology is a new one. And then I will be on Talk Cosmos on January 26th for the Aquarius new moon. Join me or watch here on my channel. And to get a hold of Marcia, it's Madam M at mindspring.com. And my website is alightpath.com. Thanks so much, Marcia, for joining me today, and I'll see you. We'll be back soon with another episode. Goodbye,
Okay.
everybody.